Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Retail Media Lounge podcast, where we explore all the pillars that are shaping the future of commerce. My name is Nikhil Menon. I drive partnerships at Osmos, where we work with a lot of retailers globally and their brands on their retail media journey. I'm really excited about today's conversation, where we will dive a little deeper into the Australia market, which, according to us, is probably amongst the most mature markets. And with me today is Jon Harding, who's one of the founding partners of Retail Media Works and is truly one of the organizations that's actually walked the talk, delivering like over $1 billion of retail media revenue, working with the largest retailers in Australia. So, John, welcome to the show.
Yes, good to see you. Yeah, thanks for the invite, and thanks. It's good to be on the show.
Great, John. So, what we'll do is there are a few like broad topics that I wanted to get your insight on, right? So, I'm going to start with the first one. You've actually been at the epicenter of this journey. Whether it's a Coles, whether it's a Bunnings, you've partnered with them over multiple years building this. Uh, so from your experience, what's that evolution been like?
First up, as Retail Media Works, we're one of the largest, if not the largest, independent retail media agency in Australia and APAC at large. What we've done is we've actually been in retail media before retail media was even called retail media. So before that, it was very paper and paste and physical store based. But since 2014, we've been in and around retailers and retail in Australia. So it's good to hear you say essentially that Australia is ahead of the curve in many ways. I'd argue that every market is running its own race. So even in this market, every vertical, there might be areas that Australia is leading in, but there's obviously much more maturity in, say, the UK and the US as well. But it's interesting that Australia is essentially, it's unique that it can punch above its weight. We've got what, 25 to 27 million population in Australia, yet we have some sizable technology unicorns that have coming out of this country, whether that be Atlassian for software, whether that be Canva, or Afterpay that got bought by Block and Square. So you can see how we are leading the charge in many different ways. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of the smaller population and the smaller marketplace, we can actually be more nimble and agile. And so that's something that we've really leaned into as Retail Media Works.
Great, John. On that theme of agility, right? And you and I have talked about this multiple times. There's always the starting point of the market opportunity, but in your early days, even before retail media is the behemoth that it is today, when you had that first initial conversation with a retailer on what they were sitting on and the opportunity, can you talk to us a little bit about that journey, right? Like, how did you pace that out early on?
Yeah. Look, when we look at the maturity of the UK and the US particularly, they have size, they have scale. You would expect them to be more mature in many different ways than, say, Australia, which was 5 years ago, starting out on the retail media journey. But what we're finding now is there's actually quite a lot of legacy that was built up before retail media hit its straps. And so when we look at the conception or the development or design of retail media from scratch, it's understanding what can we take from global trends that's true in Australia and what is unique to this marketplace. And then how do we optimize that? One of the misconceptions that is really live in all markets is that retail media is another avenue for advertising dollars from brands and agencies. And that's just not true from what we've found. Commercial relationships, trade relationships that have been built up over decades in a retailer, and that doesn't have to be a grocery retailer, that can be consumer electronics or whatever. They've been nurtured, they've been embraced, they run all the way through a retailer. You have to harness the dollars, the investment, and the relationships that they bring to the table and make sure there's a value exchange. So delivering the value back to those current suppliers and harnessing the power of those existing relationships is one of the big starting points that is a bit of a misconception. You can't just set up a retail media agency or a retail media network and expect holdco agency dollars to start flowing. You have to build foundational tech. You have to have an appetite for change to move from being a retailer to a publisher, and you have to build that retail media network up from the ground. And the best way to do that is to harness what you already have, which is those existing relationships.
And John, do you sense that it's because it's a journey, like there is going to be a little bit of friction? Like, do retailers, when you're starting off, think, hey, is this cannibalization, or am I extracting incremental value? There's the other side within internal teams at retailers as well. There is a trade team, there's typically another media sales team. In your experience, you've designed these programs to grow, eventually driving incremental value for the retailer. Do you sense that initial friction, and how have you managed that?
There's there's a lot of friction or pockets of resistance in all organizations whenever you're trying to implement change management. And I think change management is an unwritten work stream or benefit or approach of retail media that no one totally understands. So even when you are asked to build a retail media network, what you are actually being asked for is, what is the appetite for change in this organization, and how quickly do you want to move? Because whether you understand it or not, at the beginning of this journey, retail media will become, over time, the beating heart of your organization. And by that, I mean retail media, or a lens of retail media, needs to be applied to all investments going forward, data investments, data and digital transformation, platform investment, technology investment, all of that, as well as marketing and the communication canvas that you got to play with, plus then the commercial trade buying element. All of it has some form of retail media applied to it. So you start small, but the benefits to a retailer of having retail media do well in their organization is it becomes omnipresent throughout that organization. So you will always find pockets of resistance to change. But if you can prove out the benefits for the business, the benefits obviously to the P&L, and the benefits to both the advertisers and the consumers at the same time, that's the holy grail that you're trying to get to.
Wonderful, John. Now that we've established the journey, right, and I'm sure every retailer's taken their unique path to success. Looking forward, I think, is it getting more and more complex for even the mature retailers in Australia?
Uh, Not just Australia, on a global level. I think the expectation now of retail media, it's not the baby. It's not the new trend. It's now 5 to 10 years old, depending which market you're in. So the expectations of everybody that is invested in it, both internally, externally, brands, agency, train, is give me that value exchange. What am I getting in return for investing into this? And so the challenge now is for sophistication. The challenge now is to ramp up the value exchange. Why should someone like Coca-Cola invest in a retail media social channel versus just going to Meta as a social channel on their own? And that value exchange comes back to first party data, closing the loop in terms of Coca-Cola. If you buy your social through a retail media network, we can tell you that that brand has been sold, who has bought that brand, and have they continued to buy in category, to buy within brand portfolio? What is the long tail effect of that? And that sophistication is, the lifeblood of what retail media or retail media's next phase will be.
Got it, John. And I mean, I've given you a peek under the hood of what Osmos has built, right? We're trying to build the entire pipe where, customer loyalty programs, what's happening on a site, in a store, all kind of talk to each other. And can you dive a little deeper into, from a tech stack, from like an Osmos or any tech player perspective, what are some of the things that we should review in our current stack and continue to build to optimize that value exchange?
Well, we are by design deliberately provider agnostic, and I know that that can frustrate Osmos or others that we play with, but we have to be, because every retailer is different. But when we look at retail media and the next phase of retail media, it's all about composability. So when we look at technology, it is retail media is omnichannel. And so to have one solution that can bring all of those channels, very distinct channels, digital channels, social channels, and physical legacy channels in many retailers, bring that together. That's the retail media platform that we're essentially looking for. But it may be that that has to be composable. It has to be able to integrate with a market leader in data lake or a CDP. What we can't do is expect a retail media platform to do everything with inside a retailer. It has to be the core of a retail media network, but it has to be able to integrate and link to others. So when we look at offsite, offsite is a growth vertical for many retail media networks. Offsite being, open web display, being socials, being the ever-changing world of digital media. We have to be able to play in that space and offer that to our advertisers. But it's unrealistic to expect that one single platform can keep pace with all the different changes that Meta may make week in, week out. So you have to be able to trust that Meta is going to inform the retail media platform and vice versa. Then when we look at, say, how we show up to that value exchange to advertisers, it's really the measurement piece, being able to target the assets that we've got and the inventory that we've got, and then measure it. If we can have a retail media platform that can develop those insights, build those insights, and provide better relevancy and decisioning so that every time an advertiser invests in that retail media network, it gets better results, the flywheel continues. I guess that's what we're looking for in retail media 2.0.
Excellent, John. Now, switching gears a little bit, right? The big, hairy topic of AI and agents and automation. Uh, like, in your view, and you get this, I'm sure, firsthand from all the retail media partners that you actually power. What are your observations in the short term and the long term from a AI lens?
I think a lot of AI right now in the consideration set or consideration mind of a retailer is efficiencies. How will this help me with my logistics? How will this help me with my supply chain? How will this help me with my store teams with product on shelf? It's all about efficiencies. And some of those efficiencies will roll into retail media networks in terms of decisioning and relevancy. But I think when we look at how effective our ads can be, our ads can only be as effective if the human is seeing them on the canvas. I guess what's in the blind spot of a lot of retail media networks now and retailers is the change of agentic AI. So no one knows where that is going to ultimately end up. But I think everyone is going to be surprised at how quickly the change is going to come. So our parents and those around us that are not necessarily as tech savvy may not be using agents in the next 12 months. But will we be surprised if they are using it in 24 or 36 months? I wouldn't be. And that retailer and retail media network readiness for agentic AI, we're going to have to speak to both humans and bots. And it's going to be really interesting because we can now see OpenAI is on the front foot. They're releasing news week in, week out. They're building things into their browser. They're building ads into their LMNs. The way that we interact, and retailers aren't just grocery. Retailers are, travel and hospitality. I may not immediately buy my toilet rolls and my fruit juice through an agent. But what I may start asking my LMs to do quite quickly is to book my next trip and give me the options for those trips so that they can then commit and purchase. So I think AI is two things. It is both efficiencies, relevancy, and decisioning. How do we make sure that the ads served to the customer and the consumer are the best, most relevant ads to them? So it's adding the value to them in order to be more effective and provide that better return for the advertisers. But the second part is really agentic AI and how quickly that is going to impact retailers and retail media networks.
No, excellent insight, John. And I think one of the things that we're also testing under the hood here, right? It starts from a consumer change. And to make this very real with an example, I will ask potentially a bot saying, I'm hosting 10 people for dinner. There are 5 people who love vodka. There are 5 people who love gin. This is the budget. Tell me what I need. And then the bot kind of tells me, hey, within your price range, here are the vodka brands, here are the gin brands, here is a 12-pack of Schweppes tonic water that you will need. So it becomes like an agent that guides that journey. And under the hood, what we're trying to do is eventually it's the same relevancy and the same, like you said, right? The value for the person getting that information and that plugging into what's available. And I think it is still like a little bit theoretical, but like you said, I think over the 12 or 24 months, a lot of these consumer shifts will happen. And we just need to be nimble enough to ensure that the retailer is well positioned to take advantage of those shifts while providing the same value.
But let's talk about agentic AI and what that could be, and let's talk about the training models and usage of it as well. Because the first step of AI is chatbots, and I think a lot of retailers are trying to build their own walled garden chatbot. So in Australia, I know that Woolworths have got Olive as one of their chatbots, which will help you with, as you've said, recipes and meal plans for a week. But that's under the assumption that you as a consumer will go to their website to use their chatbot. The way that the world is heading is I want my own ChatGPT, my own agent, my own LLM to be my personal butler, for want of a better phrase, across all of everything that I do, my work and my personal life. For that, it needs to know me. And so my meal planning is going to happen in my agent, not a walled garden chatbot. So it's understanding where's the training model? Do I want it to be trained on me, or do I want to go to a walled garden and use that training model over there? So no one necessarily has the answer right now, but I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops over time. And for us in retail media, that we have to be able to make sure that we can provide value to the consumer that has a retail specific lens that is better for the advertiser. And for that, we need to be showing in LLMs. Now, when we look at what that future looks like, there's a lot that will be taken from the programmatic days and digital display days from 10, 15 years ago, I'm sure. But right now, it's for me, it's the speed at which that change is coming at us that is not just in our echo chamber of retail media or media at large. It's actually, when is that going to hit mainstream? And I think some retail verticals away from grocery may go faster than others. And for me, I think that's travel and hospitality. It's probably one of those.
And John, on that theme, while we've spoken about retail media, right? Actually, it's anybody who has first party data. So if I'm a hospitality chain, if I'm an airline, if I am a bank, a fintech organization, I am still also looking at a potentially meaningful revenue opportunity, just providing like high quality targeted value for my consumers. So the 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 way I want to ask this question is, the consulting that you provided to retail historically as a vertical, you could replicate for many other verticals. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think 18 months ago, I saw Chase Bank in the US launch commerce retail. And that was the first stab at retail media in something that is not traditionally a retailer. Over here in Australia, we've got CommBank. So Commonwealth Bank, CommBank, retail, they've offered it. And that you're starting to see that even when you walk up the high street, they've digitized the front of their stores. And they've recently had a campaign for travel to Canada. So you can see that if it's contextually relevant, you can start to move in that direction. I was lucky enough to be in Cannes this year at the advertising festival. And over there, JW Marriott have a large hotel on the front, but they launched their media model as well. So you can start to see how Amex are getting involved, JW Marriott are getting involved, CommBank and Chase Bank are getting involved. So retail media is really developing, as you rightly say. If you have first-party data and you truly believe that you can offer value to both your customer and an advertiser, then you can play in retail media. And it becomes a really interesting landscape, because if you look at a aviation company or a travel booking website, the journey mapping and the consumer mission is so vast, whether you use AI or not to start with. But you are literally checking 10 hotels in 20 different locations per location. You spend a lot of dwell time. So your commitment to that journey, your commitment to find the right answer can absolutely uh, be disrupted and enhanced with some sort of retail media or commerce media offering.
Excellent, John. So I think this has been a really insightful conversation. In closing, what I'd like to get from you is, for somebody in the retail media space, either a retailer or somebody in the commerce media space, right? What is the advice or some of the things that they should keep in mind as they are considering this journey? Given you actually delivered value for all of your clients.
If you haven't started, start. Don't wait for perfect to get started. Don't have to invest perfectly in data tech and have your foundations all perfect before starting, because this is a never ending story. It's organically going to grow. So you can't build the perfect state up front and then launch to market. So if you haven't started, start. And if you have started, maybe revisit, are you getting the hockey stick growth that you initially set out and thought you would capture? Are you in line with global trends? Yes or no? Are you capturing, I guess, your fair share of investment in your industry, in your vertical, in your own retail media network? And if not, why not? And by that, I mean, go hard and go fast. Don't wait for a business case to prove itself out. Be okay with failing quickly and moving on. So trial, because retail media is omnichannel. There are numerous different ways for advertisers to invest in retail media and invest in media at large. So to be able to move through those paths, through those channels and stitch it all together, really, you've got to have somebody that's going to bring it all together. And part of this of either starting out and starting quickly, or redefining your journey of where you're at now if you are more mature, it's galvanizing all the stakeholders in your retail media network and all the stakeholders in your retailer and all the stakeholders in your media industry. Because we need to prove to advertisers that you have a retail media network that is viable for their investment. You need everyone in the organization that you're working with to galvanize around the success, because the success of retail media in an organization just impacts the whole business. It is seen as a high margin channel. We all know that. That's why retailers are going crazy for it. But it has to be done in the right way. And the people that are on the ground are so important. You're only going to hit that rapid pace. You're only going to hit those incremental growth targets that grow and grow and grow if you have your stakeholders and your people invested. So give them the tech that is going to empower them to do their job. Give them the media products that they can take to market and excite advertisers around. And then also give them the data foundations so you can personalize the offer, and then you can prove out the return on investment. You can measure activity and grow investment time and time again. That's a lot to that one single question, but essentially that's our approach in market.
John, thank you so much. It's been a very insightful conversation. I think that's what we have for right now. We will come back to you with many more insightful conversations and insights deeper into many other markets. So stay tuned. Thank you so much,
Right.
John.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated. Cheers, Nikhil.
Cheers.